well. Two different types of topics, not necessarily different, just I think they correlate with each other. What we're going to be talking about is finding inspiration and dealing with failure. So, the reason I kind of wanted to get into this topic today is because, as you guys may have known, Santi and I had the chance to go to the Mill Valley Film Festival last week, which was a really great experience for us. It was our first time really delving into the festival. And through that, it actually helped inspire me through a lot of the short films to actually start just creating like my own short film, or to start creating, just content that otherwise I don't think I would have wanted to do if it weren't for all the films and all the different movies that we watched last week. And again, just watching people do creative stuff is what helps me find my inspiration. But I'll go a little bit more in depth about that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything about that, Santi.
About the Mill Valley Film
Festival and how you felt about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a very interesting and just a lot to take in going in this year. We were there last year, but it was very small portion that we were involved in.
Right.
It's still very small, but we participated more.
We got to watch a lot more movies.
Got to watch a lot of films.
And meet a lot of great actors and directors.
Yes, actors, directors, and writers. And one of the things that I learned from there is really taking the leap into working on your goals and dreams that you have, because a lot of the people we met were local artists.
Yeah, from the Bay Area.
Yeah, and I thought I never imagined that would be here. I think it's just kind of hard to visualize that at times.
But you need to be there to visualize it, right?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's how I felt, like seeing a lot of these younger directors, younger actors, like physically there, being able to be part of like the red carpet and star in these like big budget films is like really just, that is one of the many ways that I think I found inspiration is seeing them kind of be there and be present. And to me, it makes it seem, it makes it possible for me to know that this is achievable. This is something that I can achieve. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I was feeling. Yeah, I mean, delving into it, actually, before we delve into it, I wanted to ask you, Santi, since we're on the topic of the Mill Valley Film Festival, what was your favorite film from the Mill Valley Film Festival?
I had a lot, and I'm not being biased, I promise, but the film we watched, Radical, which is a film in Spanish, it was definitely my favorite one because of how I'm very open about my opinions with our current education system. I'm very open to saying, hey, there are things that I don't necessarily like. And
do you want to describe what Radical was about?
Yeah, so Radical is based on a teacher that is in Mexico. That he decided to go into teaching in this school, and the school is in an area where literally someone can be unalived at the corner of your school.
Yeah.
So it's in an area where it's unsafe and there's a lot of things that go on. And it takes place in Mexico. So there's a lot of
at the border of Mexico, really. Yeah.
And there's the characters of the kids that this teacher works with. They all have things that relate to like economical issues and self-esteem, things that young people go through, and I think anyone really goes through. But he goes in and takes this whole different take on education and teaching. He wanted to take away the memorizing and the obey, I'm the authority type of person. He wanted to implement more of like, I want you to want to learn.
Exactly.
And when you want to learn, you will find ways to learn. So that was what he implemented in that school with his class. And what I find so interesting is that he literally learned all of that through a YouTube video.
He found this different way of teaching through a YouTube video.
And you would imagine it being like, oh my God, this person went through something. They're really just watching a YouTube video. But at the end of the day, that really connects with us, whether you're in Mexico or not in Mexico. It connects a lot with today how our education system is the same. And it's such a beautiful and wholesome film that I connected to. And like I said, even if you're not in Mexico, you can definitely connect with how education across the world is being done. And which is why I'm very, very open about it. And I have my things that I don't like about our current education system. And that film kind of talks about it. So at the end of the day, I don't want to spoil it, but it was definitely my favorite film from the films that we watched.
Yeah, I have to agree. That was also my favorite film. We got to meet Eugenio Derbez, who was the teacher, who played the teacher in that movie. And, you know, as many of you who are probably, you know, any of our Latin American audience watchers or even Americans might know Eugenio Derbez from the many movies he's made in America now. But he's a very, very legendary Latino actor. And meeting him in person was a really beautiful experience, you know?
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that film is also based on true stories. So the teacher is still currently teaching back in that school.
Yeah, and Matamoros. That's what that place is called.
So
Matamoros.
So it's not just like, I think what they did with the film and taking it based on the characters in real life, it's so beautiful. And the way they filmed it, like the actors that are young actors, a lot of them were literally
new actors.
They didn't know, or I don't know, but they just the producers, if I'm correct, they went out and just put signs in Mexico and said it's an open audition. And so a lot of the people that were there, it's their first time working on a movie.
Yeah.
So that's it's really exciting to hear that and see how that all came to life.
Yeah, and it really plays into kind of, again, what I want to dedicate the first half of the show today in finding inspiration. So I feel that with youth especially when I was in high school, I felt that like I wouldn't really go out of my way to try new things because I just felt kind of comfortable where I was at. But the problem with that is that I feel like it's harder for you to find any kind of worth or inspiration in like what you want to do in the future. You know what I mean? Because like the counselors in school, they would like try to guide you, like be like, okay, so like what are your interests? But you know, something that I get a lot and I used to say all the time, and I hear a lot of youth still say is like, I don't know what I want to do with my future. I have no clue. I don't really see myself doing anything. Well, I think the best way for someone to find out what they want to do is by just going out and going to events. Watch, like, okay, let's say, for example, maybe you want to get into sports or something. You go watch a sports game and you see, hey, that actually looks like a lot of fun. But not just like, you know, your typical sports. Let's say you go check out a lacrosse game or you go check out a tennis game. You know what I mean? Like if you go out of your way to just try and look at these sports, I mean, this is just one example, but it's just another way of you finding out like maybe this is something that interests you. And if so, maybe looking into more of how that can, you know, how you can get involved with that sort of activity. But I'm coming more from the perspective of like, okay, because for me, I originally wanted to go to school for audio engineering, and I did go to school for audio engineering. But now I find myself doing a lot of videography stuff as of late, and I've really enjoyed recording video, taking video. Like, it's just awesome being able to like, and I think what inspired me a lot was actually Santi, because Santi, as a lot of you know, she does a lot of film, she does a lot of photography, and at first I was like, that's awesome, you know, like good for you that you're really good at it. But then I started, you know, watching more movies. I started seeing that there were like people like Miguel and Devin, like them making films as well. I started seeing how beautiful the art is as a whole. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what really inspired me to be like, okay, maybe I should look more into making, like, this is something I can do too. And I really enjoy doing it. So, again, that's just one of the ways that I have found inspiration as of late right now.
I 100% agree with having more that networking part. And we mention it often in the show, and we're not just saying it to say it. Going out in the intentions of going out to learn things, and because you can just go out and like go drink and go smoke, and that just a different vibe.
But you're not going to get anywhere in life doing that.
So when we say like hey, go out and explore. It's more to find what you like, to find what you don't like. And it really isn't just about finding what you like. It's also finding what you don't like. Because you find what you don't like, then you can start searching in other areas. And that can really play a big role in, and you never know. Maybe one day you really are into science, but the next thing you find, I don't know, writing, and you really got into it. So
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong, I would say.
And what I want to add too is that I know it's tough when in high school, like if you're trying to, even in college too, it can be, I think college is a little bit better, but okay. If you're trying to like look for like classes for a specific thing, like your counselor or whatever, or like whoever's the resource person at your school, you know, that's the first person you'd go to, right? To go find like, oh, hey, I'm looking for any internships in audio or any internships in video or cooking, culinary classes, like anything like that. Sometimes they're just not available. You know what I mean? Like those classes aren't available or aren't local here in San Rafael or in Novato. Because I know in Marin everything's so like bare. Like I feel like there's not very much for youth to do in the first place. So let alone like trying to look for different like classes to help you explore kind of like what you want to do with your future. So what I always recommend doing is just going online and searching media classes near San Rafael or media classes near Novato or cooking classes. You know what I mean? Like doing that, because what you'll find is online, you'll find a lot more resources for what you're kind of looking for. Because not every time, not all the resource people at your schools, they're not always going to know what's available out there.
Yeah, I would agree. And also, we have the internet. So it's, for me, that is what taught me photography and videography and storytelling. It was really YouTube and Google. So just Google around like how to make a pie, how to make something. And you can try it out at your house and see if you like it, and then find other things. I would say if you're in high school, I know that College of Marin has programs as a high schooler where you can take classes for free. So I would really encourage all of you to kind of dive into that as well.
Absolutely.
Take a couple classes that you find interesting. And again, you might not like it, you might like it. And that just kind of leads you closer to, you know, things that you really want to build a career on.
That's a great example. Because I remember back in high school, I took a psychology class during my sophomore year. And you know, I was kind of interested in psychology, and I always was interested in psychology and mental health. But I ended up not going into, you know, psychology. But it was still worth it for me to go, because then I still understood, well, okay, maybe this isn't something I want to go to in the future, but it's something that at least I know now. Now I know that I don't want to go into psychology. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it also goes to show, like, okay, maybe I can use some of the aspects that I learned from psychology in other ways, like through what we're doing right now. A lot of the topics that we cover are mental health related, and I don't think I would have been as educated on those topics if it weren't for me taking that psychology class, or for really delving into you know, all the mental health resources that are available outside of my school, outside of my college, and dealing with mental health myself. So yeah, but kind of moving on from that, I wanted to mention another great resource, I think, for finding inspiration is, let's say your friend is already doing photography, or your friend's already doing videography, or already part of a sport, right? Talk to your friend about it, like what they feel, how they feel doing that. You know what I mean? Like having friends that are, you know, in this, trying to have the same goals or have the same interests as you is always going to be such a valuable resource to have, because one, they're your friends, so you're already comfortable with the person, and two, you guys can grow and help each other out. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's why I really enjoy working with teams. I think
Absolutely. I mean, here at MCM, one of the things that I don't know much about is audio, but I think being around Javier has taught me a lot about, like, it's too loud, you can hear this. And it's interesting how when you're around people that are doing things that you're interested in, you'll pick it up. Because when we were shooting a video that for the guys,
the Área Agresiva,
it was so funny because I could pick up, my ear could pick up things really like small, like little taps.
Yeah.
And I was laughing because I was like, oh, that's Javier. Javier will be like, do you hear that? Do you hear that? And so it's also like comparison of if you hang out with people and that are in the same area or field as you, you'll pick up things and you'll see what you like and kind of put it onto you. And maybe you find something that you never knew you were interested in. You're really interested in it and build on strengthening that area.
Yeah. And, you know, again, I think at a young age, it's so easy to fall into the trap of just doing drugs and just drinking alcohol or just doing things that aren't really going to move your future forward. And I know it can be pretty tough to get out of those situations because I feel like a lot of the people who are in those situations is because their friends are doing it too. So, you know, something I recommend is just be very wise with who you choose to be your friend and acknowledge sometimes that maybe these friends aren't worth sticking around with. And not just if they use drugs or alcohol, even if they're like mentally not giving you enough support or you feel like they're not being supportive enough or just that they don't really care about your goals or anything like that. To me, what's helped a lot is, again, just surrounding myself by people that are creative and people that I can really look at as friends who can back me up on a lot, not just like, you know, on our friendship, but also on our careers and our futures. So I just wanted to add that little point.
No, I would agree. And I had something in my head and I'm blanking. But I definitely agree on surrounding. Oh, I got it back, my thought. Often when there is a pandemic kind of happening within the pandemic that we're living in, and it's unfortunately the suicide rates and the overdose in youth between I don't know the exact number, but I know in your 20s and in your early teens
a lot of young people are dying.
Yeah, so definitely I don't know the statistics, but I would say that we all have, and we'll kind of dive into that later in the show, but we all have like hard times. We are all going through different things, and you can see on social media that everybody's just kind of living life, but that's not the reality of it. We just show the pretty of our life, but there's a lot of mental battles that we have, and common thing that happens is that's why youth lead to being in groups or leaning onto alcohol or drugs to numb pain or numb the hardship of your brain going all over the place. And this is where you're responsible to seek for help. And I would say that you, in the most painful areas that you are, it can also be your most inspiring moments. And you can take that pain that you have and create something with it. For example, you can create a movie, you can write, you can create music, you can draw, paint, dance, you can
exercise,
you can
bodybuild, you know, all sorts of things
as an inspiration to create something along with it. So I would say not to just, not to lean on, substance abuse, right? Substance, is that what you said?
What do you mean?
Like not
what are you trying
drugs,
to say?
Alcohol, or all of that, but lean towards things that would help you have a healing process, and that
in a healthy way.
Way. And that again can be art in all different ways.
Yeah, because I mean I totally understand that we go through so much growing up. I feel also, especially if you come from a poor background, like a background where you grow up with a whole lot of money, because that's another thing. That's another point I'd like to make is that growing up, I did grow up poor, so I never thought I'd ever be able to achieve, like even the thought of making a movie or holding a camera, or because those things are like luxuries, you know what I mean? But then as I've grown, as my family and I have grown, and I've furthered my career in a way, it helps inspire me to be like the best version of myself that I can be, despite whatever circumstances I was put in. Because again, going back to filmmaking, I think what's interesting about a lot of the films that we watched at the Mill Valley Film Festival was that a lot of the short films had like a very small budget. Because think about it this way. So a normal budget for a film, like a blockbuster film, so we're talking like Avengers level or like, Barbie or Oppenheimer, like those types of big full feature movies. Those have like $100 million in
Over
budget.
$1 million.
Yeah, like a ton of money behind those. But then there's other movies who only have like $45,000 in a budget to make a movie or something. So again, like a lot of these granted, short films are much smaller than full feature films. But point is, I saw so many short films at the Mill Valley Film Festival that looked exactly like these $100 million budget full feature films. And it's not just because of like how it looks cinematically, it's also because of the stories. The stories were very strong. And one thing that I talked to a lot about with the people that were, the employees over at the Mill Valley Film Festival, is that a lot of them were talking about how like it's so much more interesting when you hear, stories from those from underserved communities, because we don't always get to hear them. You know what I mean? Like for me personally, like being able to hear like all these stories about these Latino artists, or these people from the Bay Area, from these underserved communities, seeing how they transform their going back to that conversation about like healing, like those traumatic events, and turning that into a story that people can like watch and relate to, is a really strong thing to do. And I don't think that people should be stopped from wanting to tell those stories, because I think we as we've grown up, I know a lot of people who are like, man, I wish I could turn my story into a book, or I wish that I could turn my story into a song. And I'm like, you should, and there should be nothing stopping you from doing that. And again, like looking at the resources that you have right now, there's so much resources available now with the internet. Like you were saying, Santi, about using YouTube, like a simple YouTube video to like teach you how to use how to do music, all that stuff. It can be a lot. So it can go forward quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that I don't remember where I read this or heard this, but it talked about how your story is I'm gonna say 1 million, but it can be more.
Yeah.
Someone had said that your story is worth more than $1 million, and I never really understood what that meant, but it meant that your story has a lot of things that can be inspired from, like it can inspire other people.
Yeah.
And that you can turn that into a project. And I'm gonna give an example so you guys don't just say, oh, they're just saying it. Saying is, when I first came to the U.S., you guys know this, I didn't speak Spanish very well. I spoke my indigenous language, and I remember going to the doctors, like really just speaking that language. And my mom would always tell me, no, you have to learn to speak Spanish. You have to learn to speak English. And I felt very, kind of lost in a way, because I didn't have that feeling of belonging with a lot of my peers.
Yeah.
And literally in my 3rd grade class, our teacher said, we're going to do a moral story. You're going to use animals. You're going to write a story. And I remember very little about this, but I had a really hard time coming up with a story. And then last minute, I said, I'm just going to use what I feel. And I used my characters, and I created my short little story. And without me knowing, again, she published it to the Scholastic's Creative Writing something, and it won. Unexpectedly, it won. And I just thought of nothing about it. But later on, I realized that it was my little inner child that was talking with that little story. And growing up now, I'm like, wow, it means a lot to me. And eventually I published that book. I mean, you can buy it on like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and order it. But that's
called Don't Show Off,
Yeah,
right?
Don't Show Off.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I mean. Like the stories you have and what you're going through right now, you can turn it into art. You can turn it into things that really will touch other people. And, anyways, that's just an example that I have that just brought up with connecting with what you were saying.
No, that's a great example. And I would even add the fact that I've heard a lot from a lot of filmmakers that all the stories have been done already. Like in reality, there's probably like nothing's original anymore or whatever. But in order to make a story original, it needs to come from your personal experience, because that's what makes us all unique, is we all go through very different personal experiences. Yes, there's probably some interconnection here and there, but like not every Latino person is going to have the same perspective. No, not
No.
on things. They're just not.
We have common things.
We have
like you
common
said,
things. Yeah.
We can share a lot of cultural things, but your experience and
It's gonna be very.
example, you're a first gen here. You were born here. So was Annalie,
Mm-hmm.
and shout out to Annalie. But you both had different experiences.
Oh, yeah.
even though you
Absolutely.
guys are Latinos. So I agree 100% on that. We all have unique stories, and one of the things that really I've been grounding on into my life now, it's that whatever happens to me, it's meant to happen to me. Because if it were to happen to you, you might not get what I'm supposed to learn. And so the things that happen to you, and if things looks so pretty in your life and not mine, it's because it's meant for you. Like you face challenges that led you to that. And if I face those challenges, it would have taken me in a different direction. So whatever happens to you, it's meant to be for you. And so anyways, it's just something that I've been really trying to focus on. I'm like, what happens to me, it's meant
to be.
Yeah, it's meant to be.
I agree.
It's kind of hard to really think about that, because like, why do these hard things have to happen? But in order for you to grow, they're supposed to happen.
Yeah.
If you are perfectly fine, then there's no growth.
Right. No, I agree completely. And that plays really well into kind of what I want to talk about in the second half of the show, is just how do you deal with failure, right? Because that's a big part of the process of finding your future, finding your inspiration is I think failure. And I think we all have plenty of examples of when we have failed or have felt like a failure. But before we delve into that, I do want to take a couple minutes to just do a couple announcements. I do want to announce that open mic is next Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. Since it's close to Halloween time, I was actually planning on making this a Halloween themed open mic. So if you want to dress up, feel free to. I'll probably end up dressing up. I don't know what, but I'll do something. And then I would also like to announce that we have our Day of the Dead car procession tomorrow, Saturday, October 21st, from 3 to 6 p.m. Again, this is going to be a really exciting procession. It's kind of our first time doing something at this scale right now here at the Multicultural Center. So it'll start here at MCM at 3 p.m. and basically all the cars will roll out from here and go all the way down 4th Street and then loop back into MCM. And then there will be like a little after party. Actually, not even really little. We're going to have 4 food vendors. We're going to have I think 3 item vendors, people selling traditional Day of the Dead related items. And we're also going to have live music from Aria Agresiva on that day too. So it's gonna be so there's gonna be a whole lot going on tomorrow, and I hope you guys can join us. We'll be there, and then of course the main event is on Saturday, November 4th, our annual Day of the Dead event at Pickleweed Park. At the Pickleweed Park Community Center will be on Saturday, November 4th, from 3 to 9 p.m. So yeah, lots of exciting Day of the Dead related events. And we hope we can see some of you guys there. But yeah, moving on. So talking about failure. So I think with failure, a lot of it comes down to just accepting it, taking the L as most people start talking about now. You know how people say, oh man, I took an L on that. Mm-hmm. Or like that's failure. You know what I mean? And sometimes it can apply. Failure applies to so many things in life, right? For example, it could be asking out a girl and getting rejected. It's like, dang, well, now I failed at that, but you can use that as an experience to analyze, well, what went wrong? Where did you go wrong? What could you have done better? It's already starting to ask those questions. Because then once you find the answer to those questions, then you'll start understanding, okay, this is what I could have done better. This is what I should have done better. Example 2. I want to start creating my own. I want to start filming, but during the filming process, I find that I shot at the wrong frame rate, and that my pictures are too blown out. Like you can barely see or the footage just comes out bad. Well, what makes it bad? Like write down what made it bad. What about that video didn't sit well with you? Like what do you think you could have done better? Because again, that's kind of how I've kind of started dealing with failure. Because what I would do before, and I think a lot of people usually take this route, is just like, well, okay, now I'm just gonna start over and not really look back at what I just did. Like a lot of people don't looking back at their failures or looking back at like what didn't go well, because it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy to come to terms with, oh, dang, like I really messed that up. I don't even want to think about it. So I'm not even going to look at it. But you need to, in order to really improve and start getting better and more, that get to a really high level for whatever it is you want to learn. So yeah, I don't know if we want to add to that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really changing the definition of failure. I think often at school, it's something very, you hear this very often, and it's like, if you don't go to college, you're going to fail. Or if you do this, you're going to fail. And there's just this so negative energy around failing. But in order for you to be successful, to have success, failure is part of that. And if you do not fail, you haven't succeeded. Because in many ways, like you mentioned, failing is what leads you to success in the way of, what did I do wrong? How can I improve? What can I do better? Anyways, that is something that I've definitely learned to kind of take away the negative energy
Aspect
around
of it.
Yeah, failing.
Yeah.
Because I really think if you are, I often tell myself this, and it's, if I am a failure, it's me not trying it and me not doing it. That is what I would consider myself a failure.
Yeah.
If I sit on it and just say, well, okay. But if I'm going after it and I'm really pushing, finding different things I can do, and things go sideways, it's okay. It's part of it. And I really encourage you all to really redefine what failure is. And often you'll hear people on media say, I'm not a failure. I won't be a failure. And it's the mindset of really just accepting that, yeah, I will fail. Maybe 99 times. But that one time I won't fail will lead me to success. And so just remember that.
Yeah. And I think one thing too that I want to add is, I think failure, it's going to happen as many times as it will, or it's going to happen no matter what. And it's just part of the process. And I don't think that you should also feel like a failure because you feel that it's impossible to achieve. Because I don't think anything's really impossible to achieve unless if it's something creative, like something that you say, like if you say to yourself, you know what, I want to have my movie up on the big screens and I wanted to play all over the world, then great. That shouldn't be an impossible dream for anyone. Yeah, it's just about putting in the time, the work, the effort to learn, first, like, okay, what do I have to do to get start a movie? Like what's the budget? What's this? What's that? So you were going to add something. Yeah.
One of the things, I think I've mentioned it before, where it's like one of the biggest difference between animals and humans is humans can have imagination. So if you imagine so many things, you can really build. You're like, honestly funny. You can really build anything you want, really, because if you really, for example, this mic was in someone's imagination, and now it's a reality. The shirt I'm wearing, it was someone's imagination. Everything around you was first imagined, like they had a vision, and it became a reality. I highly suggest anyone who you can hear it in an audiobook or read it, but it's The Magic of Thinking Big. That book is something that has really helped me to open my mind and saying, hey, anything is possible. And it's not just, we talk a lot about imagination and visualizing, but also really manifesting that, and in ways of like writing it down, putting it in things. It can look like putting a photo in your your screensaver.
I've seen a lot of people do that.
Or putting it in your room, seeing it every day, and just mentally, so the difference is if you write it down. For example, I'm gonna take this example of filmmaking. Like you want to make a top movie. If you have it in your mind, it's great. But if you have it
written down, like in a screenplay.
Yeah, you wake up every single morning and you read it. Your mind is always saying, "What am I doing to make that happen?
Yeah,
what am I?" And then you start creating a plan of action. One example that I can give you that really struck to me is Jim Carrey, an actor, very famous actor.
Yeah,
he wanted, as in his acting career, to make $1 million for doing an acting.
For being an actor?
Being an actor. He wrote himself a check of $1 million and wrote it to his name, everything. He had that check in his wallet. And he said, one day I'm going to have that. And if you've seen Dumb and Dumber, that was his first film that landed him $1 million.
Wow.
And he talked about it. He's like, I had that check. It's torn up, but I manifested that. And I would say the same thing. If you want to be an actor, do something, maybe not a check, maybe something else. If you want to be a chef, I don't know, have just go on Google Docs, write cookbook, put your name, a photo of you, just stuff like that really does something. And it's really hard for me to explain it, but it's just something that just God, the universe, energy, whatever you want to call it, in your own life, that really pushes you to work for those things.
Yeah, a lot of it does start with manifestation and just acknowledging that, like I was saying before, nothing is impossible to achieve as long as you put in, again, the time and the effort into doing it. Because it's not easy. We're not saying it's easy to just achieve, okay, tomorrow I'm going to just have a full feature film ready to go. No, it takes time. And I know that's hard, waiting so long, because I feel like the internet has made us feel so much more impatient with ourselves. Because, online, you scroll through social media and you see all these like people, all these actors, all these young actors like on Instagram, flexing all their money or flexing all their cars that they have already, blah, blah, blah. Maybe some of those did work really hard to achieve that. But also a lot of them, they're doing that for an image. You know what I mean? A lot of them are maybe just have a connection in the industry that got them there easier. Because that's another thing that you need to understand, is that not everything is a level playing field in the media field. There's some people who they have a father who works at Lucasfilm. They can just basically have their dad help them out in getting them that connection to make their film, or make their get that opportunity to be a part of such a big organization at a younger age. You know what I mean? But that shouldn't stop you from wanting to achieve the same thing. You know what I mean? Just because someone else had that opportunity to them at an earlier age or an earlier time in their life shouldn't necessarily mean that you should be turned off and be like, okay, well, now I know it's basically impossible because I don't have that connection. No, what you'll find is that if you start really, like you're saying, manifesting it, you'll start looking for those connections yourself, because you need to build those connections yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to add on to what our conversation with Eugenio was. And I think he said this before, but one of the questions I asked him was in connection of what you said. And it was, opportunity can seem very small. And in order for you to kind of take advantage or go into that, it's really doing things. How would I put this? I don't know if I can share this with that. The video hasn't come out of us interviewing.
It's all right. People will see it.
Okay. So my question to him was like, hey, I'm Latina. I wasn't born here. My third language is English. What is your advice to kind of getting involved into the field and
the film field,
film field, or in anything really? Like, how do you because if you know the story of Eugenio, he built his career in Mexico. He did not come here and kind of went around. It's like, hey, I can do this. He built his career in Mexico and then started building a career here
in America.
But he did it very, very different. And so what he ended up doing was saying, hey, I didn't go to people and say, I'm an actor, give me a job. He said, I really really want people to create things, have things for themselves. And so, and his advice was like, I would say, a lot of people tell him, hey, Eugenio, but I'm not a good writer. So how can I come up with a script? He said, work. He said, work, get a good job. And he said, save up a little bit, then
Yes.
hire someone who writes and tell them your ideas. They'll write it for you. You'll have a good script. And so once you have a good script, you can go into then to them and say, hey, I have a script. It's my script. It's my story. Here are the conditions. You can have the rights to the story, but I need to have this, and that. And so instead of you asking for an opportunity, you're giving them an opportunity.
Yeah.
So you switch that mindset instead of saying, I need an opportunity, saying, I am the opportunity. So once you have that mindset, you can go into the room and feel confident about yourself and say, not in an ego up here, like I'm all this and that.
No,
more
but in
like-
your genuine way, you know?
Yes.
Because the
very
story that you
thin
write
line between the difference of
is
like,
you.
You're having an ego and having confidence. There's
Right.
very
different.
things. And so that really changed my mind. And I was like, that's so true. Like, yeah, other people might have their parents or family members who are into this, but I am going to make the difference. And I'm going to write what I want, and then bring it onto the table. And my dad has said this so much to me. And when Eugenio said it, my dad's like, you listen to other people and not me. Because my dad has said that to me. But they're both really right about that. So I really encourage you all to provide those opportunities and then really network.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, what he said is perfect. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with his answer because, I mean, personally for me right now, I'm saving up for a new camera because I know that camera, even though it's really expensive, I am being, well, one, financially smart with it, with saving up and making sure that if I buy this camera, I don't go into debt or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's the one thing you need to make sure. But also that it's achievable. I just need to, just have time, save up a little bit more money. And even though this camera is worth this X amount of money, I know that I'm going to be able to make double, triple, more than that because this camera is going to help me elevate my production, elevate my career in videography to the next level because people will see that and people will get that from the quality of the footage that I am now going to be providing because of this camera that I saved up for. I think of it as an investment.
Yeah. Right? Once you start building your career, you'll see what, things that you can improve upon, and then you'll get better equipment and stuff. But also a big reminder to me, and that brings me back to earth, is Miguel, because Miguel shot with his iPhone. And that to me is no excuses, saying, I don't have the right equipment to film. He was like, I'm going to use my iPhone. I'm going to use whatever, have everything free. And you'll see slowly his transition into getting new things. And that's just really empowering. And one thing I wanted to kind of go back and touch on with what you said, and it was about people on social media flexing on their money, flexing on their cars. Mm-hmm. One thing I highly suggest all of you to do, I keep saying one thing, really everything that I suggest is redefining failure, but also redefining success. What does success mean?
What does success look like? That's such a great question.
Because if you think it's money, okay. But I think for me, success is really being happy with what I'm doing, and the work that I'm doing can be can help others. Mm-hmm. That could be success for me.
For you, yeah.
It could be different for you. And so, and the person that maybe you're looking on the screen, their success is to show off that they have a lot of money, but success might not be like that. And so I really encourage you all to really dive in and kind of search what success means to you and what failure means. And that way, when you see all of these things on social media, or not even on social media, just randomly, remind yourself like, hey, that's not what success is.
Right.
And really redefining that, because I think media and society has said failure is you're lost, you're doomed. And success is having all the money and everything but I know a lot of successful people and they do not show off their money in my face. Right.
Yeah.
So.
And you'll find sometimes too that at least I've seen this, is that with the media field, there's so much diversity, there's so many different styles that people have, built up. There's sometimes you could be. I've always heard the saying, like, you could be the best cinematographer in the world. Like, you could be, Hollywood levels of cinematography. But if you don't put in the work or show it to people, especially what I'm trying to say here is own up to like what you feel you're good at. Like, if you tell yourself, hey, I feel like I'm actually pretty good at cinematography. I think more people should be aware of it, because if you never show these skills off or explore these skills more, then you're just gonna not end up, finding a future in it, because you need to show it to people. Like Eugenio was saying, if you're not a good writer, don't let that stop you from marketing yourself, right? Find someone who is good at writing, build that connection, and then you'll see that once you find the writer and you're a good cinematographer, you guys are gonna come up with something incredible. You know what I mean?
And it's the opposite too. If you're a writer, or if you're someone who really wants a great film, but you're good at writing, write the story. Find a director and a producer who can bring that story to
life. Exactly.
So I definitely see that. And my biggest thing that I left with the Mill Valley Film Festival was that there is art and hidden talent, hidden story.
Oh, yeah.
Our Canal, Santa Fe, Terralinda, Novato, everywhere in Marin County. There is all of that. And so don't be afraid to show your light. And yes, you will encounter so many obstacles. But remember...
And there will be competition too.
It's part of it. Part of the journey for you to grow and take you where you need to be. And I know it's so hard to accept the failure feeling alone, but know that we're kind of all experiencing that in our own ways.
And that's what one thing I want to add to that is just that personally for me, one thing that I found is that since there are so many people getting into media content now, I always just look at it and I'm like, okay, their media content is good, but I can do something better. I put myself sometimes in that mindset. But
if you know this, Javier is very competitive.
I am a very competitive person.
I would add and that it's really great to have healthy competitiveness.
Yeah.
Or else you'll stay in the same place. But also it can be a very danger zone, because you can be like, oh, my work is not that good. The best way I kill those thoughts in my head is, but that's how their style is. My style is this.
Different. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be the best in my
and
style.
And that's a great point, because I never want to copy someone's style.
Yeah.
That is never what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to kind of about inspiration, when I mean inspiration is like not copying what someone's doing. You can like someone's style, but you need to come up with a way to make it unique to you.
Yeah, everyone has their own.
Everyone has their own unique style, and everyone has their own preferences to how they like making things look, or writing things, or making things. Like, everyone needs to find that unique thing about themselves. And if you can't find, if you ask yourself, well, I don't think there's anything unique about me, then what I encourage you to do, and like I was saying earlier in the show, is go out and just get more experiences. Like, as in, go out with your friends and try something new. Go outside and visit a pumpkin patch or something. If you've never gone to a pumpkin patch, go to a pumpkin patch. What I'm trying to say is just get out there and do anything that you haven't explored yet. Maybe that's just trying out a sport. Maybe that's trying out a cooking class. Maybe that's, trying out photography for the first time. Again, any type of thing that gets you moving, anything that gets your brain thinking in a different way. Because if you stay in the same, I think people get into the same cycle of things. But if you break that cycle, you'll start finding like, okay, you know what? Maybe you can start taking elements of this. This is what I learned during this experience. You know what I mean? You start finding what makes you unique,
Yeah. And that way you can get better at your own craft. And that's where what I would consider healthy competition, because you need that in a way to push you at times. but like I said, having a very good balance between the two of like helping it push you but not bringing you down, and remembering your own uniqueness.
Yeah.
And I loved well, you kind of had this question, and I want to ask you, like, connecting it all together, failure and inspiration. Is there any film songs that have really inspired you and during when you feel like a failure, or the light to doing cinematography or stuff like that?
I think definitely I'll use an example of last week at the Mo Valley Film Festival, just because it's still fresh in our mind. I know we've been talking about the Mo Valley Film Festival so much this episode, but believe us, like it was really a great event.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
It's a really good opportunity to go and watch those films. But okay, so there was this short film called The Lake Merritt Monster, and it's by a Bay Area director. I'm not going to say his name because I don't remember it off the top of my head right now, and I do not want to mess it up. But Lake Merritt Monster, go look it up. It's a 15, 20-minute short film about, well, in Lake Merritt, which is in Oakland. There's this legend that there's a monster, like a Loch Ness monster. Not really like the Loch Ness monster, but just a monster that, is in the Lake Merritt. And, the director he got the idea because growing up, so he's black. Growing up, he was watching The Goonies, and The Goonies, it's an all-white cast of boys. But he liked the idea of The Goonies, like how it's like an adventure film filled with this group of friends. Like he wanted to make a movie like that, but with people that look like him. Mm-hmm. He said that he made that very clear that's why that was one of the biggest inspirations that he had for making that movie. And I watched it, and it was. Like he said, it was a really diverse film. And I'm not just saying diverse film like that he made it diverse to force it. It didn't feel forced. It felt very unique to him because it's the vision that he had. And I can feel it. I could feel it watching that movie. Mm-hmm. And he also worked with a really small budget of like $45,000, $50,000. That's a really tiny budget for the level of quality that he made.
Animated, or was it?
So that's the thing. So it's live action, but the monster was animated like CGI. Oh. And it looked really great for what budget he had. And I believe that the monster was actually designed by one of the most famous because there's a company that just designs monsters for movies, and he managed to, I think they've designed monsters for like Stranger Things. Okay.
I have two things to add on to that, but finish your thought.
But anyways, after watching that movie, I talked to him after and was like, man, this is this is what helped me kind of start understanding that I want to make my own short film and that it's achievable with any type of budget. And he said yes, you can achieve it. If I can achieve it, then anyone can achieve it, right? That's what he was saying. And he was very, very humble in that response, because he made it clear that a lot of it was a lot of favors. He just asked a lot of people for a lot of favors, and because he had built such a long-term relationship with these people, they were able to, do a lot of stuff for free. You know what I mean? So it's things like that can go such a long way. So that's why I'm always saying, it's good to keep those connections. Even if you make that connection once, it's good to just keep in contact with people who will help you and benefit and help, make your project the best it can be, because yeah.
I would agree. That's something that I was going to ask you. It's to bring it up, and it's part of that connections and building relationships with people, because when you have an idea in mind, and someone, you can reach out and say, hey, I need support with this, and they can support you, whether it's making it for free, lowering the cost, or actually, hey, pitching on and getting into the idea. You can find people who can. You really need a team in anything you need. You won't do it by yourself.
No, you can't.
And
it's you could, but it's very hard.
I think you just really can't in anything. Really. And it's part of something that we all think we're solo, but really you need a team. Mm-hmm. Tay's the same thing. We're a team, and there's so many things that go behind it. Our guests are part of that team, which they're missing today. But and you need a really solid team to support you and kind of bring the ideas to life in your dreams and goals. And also the fact that you mentioned that there's this company that designs only
Monsters, yeah.
adds on to what I'm discovering, and it's that you can build a career in mostly anything, like anything.
Yeah, there's a whole company that just designs
Yeah,
monsters.
I bet there's like, I don't know, I just it really opens my mind saying, man, if there's, what haven't I seen? You know, like really, there's a lot of things that we will discover along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. And again, so the Lake Merritt Monster was that movie. And it was one of the movies that really caught my eye when I was looking through all the Mill Valley Film Festival films. I like that movie way a million times more than Maestro, which was supposedly the big hyped movie for that film
Maestro.
festival.
Oh, the closing.
Yeah, the closing film. I think it's by Bradley Cooper, right? Yeah.
He directed
He directed and starred in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Like Santi and I shared very similar thoughts. I thought the film was wasn't very entertaining.
I mean, it is based on
A true story of a
true story.
composer.
And I am not really into like composer. I actually have to ask my brother now that I think about it. He doesn't know I went to go watch it because, again, maybe because I was not really involved in like composing stuff that I really didn't get the story.
Yeah.
But again,
But the point is, it doesn't matter. Like Maestro is a movie that had a huge budget compared to the Lake Merritt Monster. But the Lake Merritt Monster impacted me more personally than Maestro did. So that just goes to show that you don't need a whole lot of, like, you don't need the biggest budget. You don't need the biggest actors in the world to leave an impact on a person.
oh, that 100%. I agree with that.
So I just want you guys to think about that. We are near the end of the show. But did you have any last, questions or any last thoughts you wanted to bring up before we wrap it up?
Just again, redefine failure and success. And you are not a failure. You are really a failure once you stop and
Thinking that you're one.
you know-
Because it's just part of life. Failure is going to happen.
part of life. You need to fail. If you don't fail, you're not going anywhere. So the more failures you have in life, I feel like the more you're growing because you're learning. And trust me, I have had many things go wrong, from friendships to projects to like many things I can say that has happened to my life. And I always tell people I'm not perfect. I have things that have gone sideways, but I'm still here. And so if things are going sideways in your life, remember that. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, because you will never know where things will lead.
And keep trying new things. Like I said, I know we stress that a lot throughout our shows, but it's true. Trying out new things can go such a long way in helping you find like your own unique voice, your own unique style in whatever you plan to do. You know what I mean? Because here's another thing. Like, I keep bringing up the cooking thing. I don't know why, but it's just resonating with me right now. Is like, let's say you're I don't know, you're an Indian person, you're of Indian descent, and you want to get into Mexican cooking or learn how to cook Mexican food. Nothing should stop you from doing that just because of your background or because like, it's something that doesn't seem achievable. Go for it. It's a new experience. You're trying something out new. And then you'll find maybe that once you learn how to make some Mexican dishes, you'll start being able to implement that with your own cultural dishes. You know what I mean? And that's how we get a lot of these fusion places. Things like that are unique, is what I'm trying to say.
And like Arnold said, if you see something, an idea, and you're like, well, I've never seen that done before, great, you're the first one to do it.
To do it, yeah.
That has always stuck with me. And I agree with that. I'm like, okay, if someone hasn't done it, I'm the first one to do it. And what a honor to be the first one to do it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
But always dream big. Nothing is impossible to achieve if you put in the time, the effort, make those right connections. You're going to be able to achieve a lot. And that's what I hope everyone can get out of this show.
And show off.
And don't show off. That's the other thing. Don't let your ego get too much. Healthy competition is good, but going too deep into it can ultimately lead to your demise. So, anyways, we hope you enjoyed today's show. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you guys